yourself if you're not talking. Go ahead and do that now. And there's good reason that I'm saying that. On previous calls, when everybody was not muted and they weren't talking, you unknowingly are maybe typing or something's going on, and it creates a lot of distraction and feedback for everybody else. So it looks like everyone's done that. Thank you for that. When we first thought about the outline and agenda for this call, I think there were something like 11 or 12 people signed up. So we're kind of going to change it on the fly here to accommodate all of the people that are here as best that we can. So have some patience and bear with it. To introduce myself, my name is Hayim Mizrachi. I'm with MDL Group, CORFAC International in Las Vegas, Nevada. That's how you say Nevada for those of you who are not from here. It's not Nevada, Jonathan. I'm the board secretary. I want to make a couple of acknowledgments. First of all, the CORFAC staff who are not just on the call, but are helping all of our CORFAC members organize these calls. There was investment sales class. This is the office call. There will also be an industrial call and a retail call. If you're interested, look out for those as well. Also, I want to acknowledge a few board members who I see. If I miss you, I'm sorry. I'm on two screens here, but I do see Joe. I heard Mason earlier. There's Mason. And I think Alan's on too. Jonathan, did I miss anybody? No, you're shaking your head no, and I'm reading your lips no. Okay, so if I did miss anybody, I'm sorry. You know, like I said at the beginning, when we first thought about how to do this call is about setting the foundation for the CORFAC office brokers as a network. You know, last spring, we hosted a regional office brokers conference in Las Vegas. It was attended by about 40 people. I had a bet with Jonathan. If I got to a certain number, I'd get a Popeye's chicken sandwich. We were just shy of that number. So I did not get that chicken sandwich. But there's a reason why we all joined CORFAC to begin with. And in these times, the reason becomes amplified. We joined CORFAC because we want to be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. We joined because we want to connect and do a network to share and get best practices, to keep ourselves the best that we can be, and to get referrals. Now, I have never personally picked up the phone and made a referral to a total stranger. There's always somebody that I knew, or it was a warm introduction. So the more we as CORFAC members connect ourselves to each other, the higher the probability to get referrals. And let's face it, right now, more than anything, I need referrals more than I need more webinars. So we want to make this productive. We want to make it proactive. Let's go to the next screen. The next slide, please. So like I said, initially, what we wanted to do, because it was a smaller audience, was to have everybody introduce themselves, their company, their location, and the areas that they serve, the specialty or their area of expertise, and to ask the one question right now that this group can help me.
And another.
So I think Brandon, you unmuted yourself by accident. How many people are on the call now officially?
We've got 38.
So if we did 2 minutes for 38 people, it would take us a ton of time. So I will recommend that we skip the overall introductions. I think what we can do is anybody that signed up, do we have their contact information on a spreadsheet?
We do.
Okay, so we will send that out after this call. So anybody that's on this call, you'll have their contact information handy. If you ever do need contact information, of course, you can always go into the CORFAC website and get a directory, access to the directory there. So we're all office brokers. Right now, the world is in flux, not just the product type. We're seeing a lot of things. Office tenants, Kurt and Renee from Pro Tem in Chicago shared a wonderful letter on a previous call, how they're advising their tenants, what questions they should be asking, if they are approaching their landlords for any kind of rent relief, how to approach them in a productive way, not in a bullying kind of way, which would likely get them nowhere. And our landlords also, they have a different perspective and a different set of challenges that they're dealing with. They have tenants coming at them from one phone and one headset, and then they have their lender on the other one, or they should have their lender on the other one. You know, a lot of content is already out there. Globe Street is writing articles. That's all there. What I think would be good is find your chat box. It's probably at the bottom. If you don't know where it is, it's at the bottom of your screen. Go ahead and go ahead and start posting questions about, for you right now, what is one thing that this group can help you with to understand, to direct you to resources, to get you some answers. Let's see how this goes for a little bit. And then also I want you to be thinking about, we've got a little challenge. What is the best prospecting activity that you have that you're doing right now? I want, if you have one that you want to present to the group, is there a way they can raise their hand or acknowledge that they want to make a presentation on this? And it can be just a, you know, explain it to everybody. I see the questions are already coming in. Keep them going. Is there a way that people can raise their hand or acknowledge that they want to share a best practices around prospecting right now? So we can start capturing who wants to do that. Is there like a hand raising mechanism or something like that?
Yeah, Hayim, at the bottom, there's a button called Reactions.
Okay.
And if you click on that, you'll see it, you can raise a hand.
Okay, cool. All right, so if you didn't hear that, here's what you do. You go to the bottom where the chat is, you hit Reactions, it's a little smiley face, and either throw a thumbs up or a hand raise. I'll start writing down the names of the people. After we go through a round of asking some questions, we're going to go to whoever wants to share a best practice around prospecting, and then we're all going to vote on who has the best prospecting activity. And then I will personally send you a gift from myself if you are the winner of this competition.
Hi, I think it's Mike Feuerman in South Florida. I think that to raise your hand, Mason, you have to click participants and a pop-up comes up and then there's a button that says raise hand. I think the reaction is either a clap or a thumbs up.
I see.
But for the organizer to see who has their hand up, I think you have to click participants.
Okay. So new plan. On the left of the chat box is one called participants. Click on that. It brings up a window. On the bottom right of the window, you click raise hand. So I see Michael raised his hand. Kurt raised his hand. Who else? I'm trying to scroll down. Howard Green. And that looks like that's it. All right. So if you have a good prospecting activity you want to share, go ahead and raise your hand. We'll come back to you. But for now, let's jump into these questions. I am here to help moderate. I am not the leader supreme of this. So we'll ask the question. If somebody has an answer, let's go ahead and chime in. And we'll help each other get answers to the questions that we have. So Kurt asked to the group, are landlords really negotiating down from where they were? Kurt, do you want to elaborate on that? What do you mean by down from where they were?
Well, here in Chicago, the market for office space was overheated, and we had the strongest market that we have seen since, I think they said since 2007, right before the crash. But, you know, I don't know whether they're going to get realistic and realize that I think we're going to be seeing in the office market complete retrenching. And but I'm just in the middle of a negotiation. I haven't really seen the landlord's true counters to what my counter. So I don't know whether they are going to get realistic here or not. And I'm just wondering whether in any other markets, anybody has actually proceeded in a negotiation and gotten landlord responses that are more indicative of the fact they're realistic that this market is going to tank.
So is the question, if I can summarize it, specifically in an overheated market, what's the landlord motivation or what's the tenant's leverage to get the landlord to provide some kind of relief?
Hey, Kurt, this is Frank Schultz from LA. We're involved in a couple negotiations, and everyone's response generally seems to be, I'm going to sit and wait and see what happens. We've tried to engage, and unfortunately they've said we're not going to respond for 30 days, or, which has now been extended out here for another 30 days. So I think everybody's afraid to be the first person to post something on the board.
We just finished a 26,000 square foot office deal, and about a week ago, well, last Friday was when we signed it. About a week ago, we went to the landlord and said, given the current environment, we're going to stick with our current rent negotiation, which we were satisfied with prior to this COVID outbreak. We were probably $1 or $2 under where the landlord wanted to be. And we went in and extracted another 3 months of free rent. We had 3 months going in, and we added 3 months. And they were showing a lot of motivation. So I think to some extent rent, but particularly terms are achievable or negotiable right now.
I'm sorry, Dustin, what market are you in?
Sorry, we're in the Denver market, and we've been a very overheated market to this point.
Okay. Yeah, I heard that. Okay, well, that's hopeful. Okay, thanks.
So Dustin, while you're on, you asked a question. Let's just jump to that one. You're in the middle of a partial termination lease extension for a client. Is anybody else doing this right now? Talk more about that.
So this is actually an industrial client, but I think this is coming up in the office space, office environment. Our client came to us and said, hey, all of our clients have stopped paying us, and we're not in a position to pay rent. And not only that, but we don't see a strong future in our core business after this. And so we are either going to need space or need to negotiate down our rent or down our footprint. And so my initial reaction was, let me help you. Let me look at what email you want to send to your landlord, and then we'll give you some advice about that. But then yesterday we had a conversation about, instead, back, I guess in 2008, 9, 10, there's a lot of blend extend because rents in Denver had gone down 20 to 30% or more. And so there was a lot of blend extend activity. And I think this is a little steeper and hopefully quicker, but there's people are seeking rent relief, and then they're also seeking to shed some space. And so I guess I've made the decision that we were going to get involved, and they actually only have a year left on their lease, and right now we would be negotiating a lease renewal or starting to look around at what were their options in a year to move, and then start to pursue a renewal with the landlord. We're going to start early and say, hey, landlord, we want to renew, but we want to renew in a different footprint a year early at maybe the same rate. It's a pretty attractive rate that we originally negotiated for them, and negotiate, on their behalf in this transaction. It's a transaction. It's just a little bit more of a negative transaction than we normally would be pursuing. So I guess my question is anybody else actively involved in the shedding a couple months of rent and negotiating down, or blending, extending, or blending / termination of partial termination?
Yeah, Dustin, it's Mike Feuerman. I'm in South Florida, covering the West Palm Beach, Fort Lauderdale, and Miami metro areas, office tenant rep. I'm negotiating with a landlord in Miami, downtown Miami, And we came to them seeking some rent relief at the end of March. And they said, let's wait, revisit with us mid-month, which is, tomorrow. I'm going to call them day after tomorrow. And they said, it might be that we'll give you some free rent and extend out your term. My client was not sure whether they were going to renew or relocate within the building or relocate outside the building. So we don't want to do a long-term blend and extend. But, as we heard from LA, they're sort of on hold and making those long-term decisions, from what I've found right now. Also doing some medical office leases here, and we're getting the same thing. We're just getting a little bit of a hold, wait and see who pays their rent in April, what kind of condition we're in overall as a landlord, and then we'll be willing to give some concessions. But I'm not seeing, we're so early in this crisis, I'm just not seeing anybody jump and start to give wholesale concessions just yet at this point. I think everyone expects, some devastation in the retail market, but we're just not sure what's going to happen in the office market. So I don't think either side is, making any drastic moves. From what I'm seeing, we're not an overheated market. We're at about 11% vacancy in the office market, which was, shifting to a landlord's market. So that's what I'm seeing.
This is Howard Greenberg. My market is primarily Westchester County, New York, north of the city. Not an overheated market, but similar to what Mike was saying, was kind of making a turn to a landlord's market after decades of being a tenant's market. I think more people will have paid April rent, even if they pay it late, than will pay May rent, because cash flows were, I think, holding up through March, or at least the middle of March. I think the real reality of this is going to start to come in the next couple of months, where we will see, maybe 70 or 80% rent payment in April, which could drop down, significantly from there. And at that point, I don't know whether landlords are going to look to make any deal they can just to keep some cash flow going. And the big issue that nobody's really got any information on is what's happening between landlords and lenders, because that is going to determine how much flexibility landlords are going to have in doing things. And I think there's going to be a lot of short-term thinking, a lot of patchwork, a lot of short-term extensions, so on and so forth, which will be difficult on the brokers and just push our business down the line another year or so until maybe the world gets back to a little bit more normal.
Yeah, this is Mason in Detroit. I approach the business mainly from the landlord representation side. I don't do as much tenant rep, and I have one particular client who owns 15 buildings here in the Detroit area, and we're proactively trying to turn a negative into a positive. We've identified every tenant in every one of the buildings who have a lease expiring in the next 18 months, and we're proactively reaching out to those tenants and telling them, if you would be open to an early renewal of your lease. I know you're 18 months out. We can give you some relief on your rent today. There's got to be a give and take, and there could be an opportunity here for the landlord to extend lease terms in a lot of these buildings. So we're trying to look at the positives here, and I think most property owners and tenants are somewhat pragmatic, and it's got to be a give and take. There's got to be something in it for both sides, and if you approach it that way, there are opportunities in the market. And that's what we've been trying to counsel our clients, both on the tenant and the landlord side.
To kind of follow up on that, this is Steve Garza in San Antonio, and I have a tenant that I represent, and which is actually, I'm representing them locally on a team with a national account broker, and they early on decided they were going to go to all of their.
Oh, it's nice.
And
we went one time on Monday. Well, so
Wes?
we went again and took the.
Thank you.
who,
Go ahead, Steve.
they were going to uniformly ask for, depending on the particulars of the particular lease, they were going to ask for anywhere from 3 to 6 months of abatement and offer to do an early lease extension of 18 to 24 months. And which kind of sounds in line with what the previous speaker was saying they're doing, or or what Mason was saying, I guess, that they're offering the landlord, as a landlord, they're offering to their tenants.
So thank you all for those contributions to help answer that question for Dustin. It was a nice conversation. Cole, did you want to jump in? Nope. Okay. There were a couple questions in the chat box that related to trends around tenants. You know, are tenants going to be apprehensive now to sign longer term leases? Or will tenants sign leases on larger spaces or smaller spaces? When I first read that, larger spaces was counterintuitive, but then the explanation was, you know, is this going to shift the way that we design office spaces? We went to, you know, from the typical 250 per square foot down. Benching is gone. So the density in the offices for social distancing might be changing as well. So any thoughts around tenant trends, tenant motivations going forward? Are long-term leases now a thing of the past?
Hi, this is Kurt Walsh from Chicago. I don't think they are, as long as landlords start realizing they've got to do really aggressive deals at this point, that they have to do really aggressive deals. So I think those will continue. I think the social distancing things within office spaces, it's possibly going to change, and you're going to spread the people in the benching out more. But I think you're going to also see more people work from home. I think I'm even surprised that I'm reasonably capable working from home. I didn't think I would be. I actually haven't disliked it that much, except when the dog barks when the printer's gone. But anyway, so I think you're going to see a reduction in headcount in the spaces themselves. That's probably going to offset any interest, expansion of, distances between the users in the space. So I definitely don't think we're going to see an increase in tenants taking in more space. I don't. So anyway, that's my thought.
What about terms? What is everyone's thoughts on how tenants will be approaching the lease term going forward?
I think anybody that's in place who's got a reasonably functioning space is going to just try and do some short-term extensions. If there are new tenants to a market that have to open up, or if there are tenants whose workflow is really poor and they need to reconfigure, they will have to take longer lease terms. One area that I think is going to be in flux for a while is the landlords having to go back to their lenders, possibly under stress, to get their lenders to extend them monies for holdouts, legal fees, commissions, et cetera, on new deals. And again, we have no idea how difficult this is going to be at the moment, but there's going to be backlogs on construction. There's going to be financial constraints on construction. Credit is really going to be king with tenants, because anybody that's thin, anybody that does not look like they're going to survive or come back strongly is going to have a very difficult time getting a deal done. So there's just still a lot of questions, and I think a lot of them are going to have to do with the lenders and how they deal with the landlords and releasing of funds for various activities and so on, especially in a period of reduced rent income.
Does anybody else want to chime in on what they're seeing or what they believe? And if not, we can go on to the next
Yeah, quickly, it's Mike Feuerman from South Florida again. I heard one tenant mention that they might be looking for a 6-month right to terminate at any given time, in which case you might be looking at some guarantees to reimburse the landlord with termination penalties, unamortized TIs, commissions, or in a market like South Florida where you get paid 50% on lease signing, 50% on occupancy, they might say, we'll pay you every 6 months. They might start spreading out the commissions.
I think it's going to depend on people, the company's confidence in their ability to proceed. So if they're confident, they should be grabbing rents at a reduced rate right now. If they're unstable, then they're not. They're not going to be going after a long term. They're going to be pursuing these short-term strategies that everybody's talking about.
Hi, this is Cole. Are people seeing rents being reduced already, or are rents holding stable so far?
Stable in Denver.
Stable in Denver?
So far.
In Chicago, these first proposals I've gotten for a new tenant, about 15,000 square feet, solid credit. They're trying to keep their rents the same that they were like January. They're trying. But
yeah.
I'm actually putting together my counters, and I'm going to be very aggressive. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond to that. And as soon as I get that, I'll make sure to share it with all of you.
We appreciate that. I think we're anticipating in Sacramento, at least, the capital, California, in our markets, that a lot of these larger projects are going to go back to the bank, and it's going to have downward pressure on rents in our region is kind of what we're anticipating at this point.
Mason, I know you asked a question about when it's appropriate to prospect for tenants, which I'm going to save as a segue to the next part of this. And if anybody signed in after the introduction, we're helping each other ask questions right now. We've got another one from Greg Ellis that I'll go to next. And then after that, here in a few minutes, we're going to shift into prospecting best practices. So far, I've got Michael Furman, Kurt Walsh, Howard Greenberg, Dustin Whistler, Mason Capitani, and myself will be giving a small thought or idea or presentation on one of our prospecting best practices right now. And then we're going to vote on who had the best one. So if you have a prospecting best practice, find the participant icon, click it, in the bottom right, you can raise your hand, and then I'll know that you're wanting to share your best practice around prospecting. So Greg Ellis, interesting question. You have a building with a tenant, KBR. You received a letter for rent reduction from a Cressa broker. It's a form letter, and they requested 75% rent reduction. So you responded, let's set up a call, but you haven't heard anything back. So has anyone else received a form letter? Let's take Cressa out of it, a form letter in general. Or Greg, is it specific? Do you need some feedback on Cressa and how to deal with them?
I was a little bit curious about Cressa in particular. I mean, they're pretty hardcore tenant rep brokers, but just curious how many other people are getting form letters like that from tenant rep brokers. We're not even 100% convinced that the tenant knows that they sent the request out. The tenant did in fact pay April's rent in full at the same time that the letter showed up. So I was just curious if anyone else has seen anything like that. And I would tell people, I think you need to unraise your hand as well. Otherwise it stays permanently raised.
No, we want it raised because then I'll know when we get to that point who has their hand raised. It's easier for me if it stays raised there for this purpose.
No problem. Sorry.
Okay, this is Kurt Walsh. Part of my what we've been doing in terms of business development is we've been reaching out to all of our existing clients, no matter when their lease expires, operation is, and all of our really, really hot prospects, like ones we've met with and ones that they've said that they're probably, that they kind of indicated that we might have some opportunity down the road. And we're telling them that we're suggesting to them that because of what we're seeing from some landlords who are offering things like, it's not a complete forgiveness of rent, but with a simple request, they are waiving any late fees. So you can pay rent late without any, and they won't call you in default and everything like that. So, we kind of consider that, because it's coming from a really tough New York landlord, that's kind of low-lying fruit. So we are going out and saying, would you like us to contact your landlords concerning any type, whatever relief they may be offering to everybody? So, and I got to tell you, we've gotten a yes from everybody. So now a lot of that is going to result in nothing, but at least it's showing, especially the prospects, our existing clients kind of expect that, because that's what we do as a SOP. But the prospects, I think we're getting a very good response in terms of them being impressed that we reached out to them, willing to offer them help. So that's it.
Greg, I was going to share, Joe Latina posted an article from Globe Street, what office tenants want from their landlord right now.
Yeah, I read that too.
I believe in that letter, they talk about that they don't even answer form letters.
Yeah.
Greg, it's Howard. I would agree that a form letter, I wouldn't even respond, especially with a 75% rent reduction request, and especially if the tenant paid his rent. I think it's just somebody being an idiot, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, interestingly. And I think, going back to what Kurt, you just said, I think, if your business is all tenant rep, that's one thing. But I think for the rest of us, we need to be really careful that we balance our services to both tenants and landlords, and don't put ourselves on one side of the fence or the other, if in fact we work with both. Because I think anybody being opportunistic and assuming that there are blanket rent offers or stuff like that, I think that's pretty dangerous at this point in the game.
Well, we are strictly tenant rep.
I'll just add one thing. I'm on the NAIOP, the local chapter board. I was on our board meeting was by Zoom this morning. And we started out with a 10-minute, 15-minute roundtable around what is everybody seeing. The major landlords, this was sort of the sentiment that came out from them. First and foremost, the majority of people want to do the right thing. Now, every market is different as far as how, what the closures are, how strict they are, what the governor is saying and not saying. Here, the governor came out and said, we're closing, non-essential businesses, and we're closing the eviction courts. So it was a signal in a way, you don't have to pay rent. Although he did come back and say, you still have contracts that you have obligations to fulfill. So most people want to do the right thing. That doesn't deter the folks that are just asking for rent relief opportunistically, even if they don't need it. And every landlord, we have one here locally called Harsh. They've got 10 million square feet. So it's probably, if not 2,000, very close to 2,000 tenants locally. Every one of them is case by case. 85% of the rents, this was the stat that was shared by another landlord, of 85% of April rents were collected. So they're taking the other 15% on a case by case basis. And the other concern is May rent, not as much as April rent was a concern. Everything I'm reading, everything I'm hearing, everything that we're seeing is, form letters don't work. Everything is case by case. The best policy right now is to communicate. And what Greg said, I want to underscore that. We have an obligation right now to shepherd and lead in the industry. And it's not about, even if you are strictly a tenant rep, taking this opportunity and beating the heads of landlords, because it's going to go upstream to the lender, to services in the building, and ultimately someone's going to get caught holding the bag. So this is a shared crisis and a shared, I think, response to it. Any other questions that anybody wants to pose in the group chat? And if not, we'll go to the next part of this, which is presenting some best practices around prospecting. Okay, so Mason, you asked a question about when is it appropriate to start prospecting for tenants? So that's an interesting question right now. When is it appropriate to start prospecting? People are distracted, people are in crisis, people are fighting for their livelihood.
Are you looking for me to answer that?
I'm looking at anybody. I mean, that was your question. So is it okay to start prospecting now?
Yeah, I think it is. We're actively reaching out to, we're most focused on our community practice and outreaching to them. And what I've had a lot of good reception to the outreach, and we're getting the chance to talk to people that are normally not that available. I think depending on the industry, if you're calling a tenant, that person might be traveling, they may be on a plane, they may be in another city. All of them are at home right now, and they're open to the conversation. Some organizations are glad we called and interested in what are we seeing. Everybody wants another perspective on what's going on.
Okay.
Hey, it's Jeff here in Portland, and I think, isn't that what we do all the time? I think everything we do is prospecting, whether we're going to our kids' sports back when they had sports, or you see someone at the store, the community. We're always prospecting because it's about relationships. And I remember one of the first things I learned from my mentor was, just always do the right thing, take care of people, and then all the money, that'll all come. And so I think we're always prospecting, and sometimes prospecting is helping them out. Sometimes it's giving them advice, and sometimes we're even psychologists and counselors and all the other things that we do, right? Just to keep things going along. But when you've got that long term, I think one of the things that's a challenge right now is sometimes people are in that immediate panic or frustration, and they have a tendency to be caught in a tunnel, and then they look into a short-term view of things. And so sometimes it's best when we can kind of step in and give them a bigger picture and give them some wise counsel. So that to me, I think we're always prospecting. Sometimes it's more of a sell and trying to close on something, but other times that's just part of the process. So
it sounds like the general consensus is the answer is yes, if done in a mindful and common sense way.
Yeah. I think a lot of prospecting's got to be done with long-term clients and seeing how we can work with them, because that's where our deep relationships are. And these are people that are going to trust you. And certainly in these uncertain times, you need someone who is going to trust you. That's going to be the key, I think, to getting new business. And if people are just going to cold call willy-nilly, if other brokers, I would say, are just going to cold call willy-nilly, it's just kind of how you hit somebody. It's really the total luck of the law. But I've got clients that have got leases coming up in 2 or 3 years that we're already, kind of at the front end of working on, no paper really changing hands. But as rents begin to reduce, I think that it's going to increase their desire to get these leases renewed, and I think the landlords are going to be receptive to it. May not be today, maybe a few months from now, but I think they'll be receptive to early renewals, and I've got some fairly sizable deals on that. And I think cold calling is going to be difficult. I agree with Dustin. I'm sure some people are going to want to, hear interesting information. And somebody popped up on the chat, I gather from New York, who said that cold calling is prohibited until September. I was not aware of that. But I think referrals from existing clients, things like that, who do you know that we can help? How can we help you? Would be most productive in this kind of environment. Not to mention, if you have good credit tenants, that's helpful. I've got tenants who defend insurance companies, and their business is going to absolutely be through the roof once the thing handles, as is frankly lawyers, criminal lawyers, a lot of other types of professions. And I think it would be helpful to think about those and how, you know, how their needs are going to increase, if anything, after the pandemic is over.
So hang on to the microphone right there, Michael. We're going to shift now to the next part of this, which sharing your best tactic, your best technique for prospecting. Again, I'll say the folks who have raised their hands so far, myself, you, Michael, Kurt, we've got Howard Greenberg, Dustin, Whistler. If anybody else wants to share their best tactic or technique for prospecting, again, hit the participants icon at the bottom in the right-hand corner there. Raise your hand. All right, so Michael, let's hear it. Oh, and I'm going to say this. We're going to vote at the end of this. Whoever shared the best one, I will send you something from me personally.
Okay.
All right, Michael, you're up. What's your best prospecting tactic or technique?
Sure. And thank you for hosting this, Hayim. I mean, this is really helpful. I'm learning a lot today. I'm taking some notes. Kurt touched on it. Howard touched on it. Reaching out to active and inactive clients. And Hayim, you'll recognize that from Massimo. We don't call them past clients, we call them inactive clients. Reaching out to them first and foremost. You know, the question was whether we should be prospecting now. We should be prospecting. And I think the first thing that I ask people is, you know, how are you doing? How's your business? How's your family? How's your health? Are you doing okay? Because I've gotten close with and friendly with a lot of my clients. And, you know, I genuinely care, and it shows them that you care, and I want to know how they're doing. Secondly, I'm also a lawyer. I was a commercial trial lawyer for 6 years before I got in this business 21 years ago. And I tell them, look, if you have questions about your lease, let's talk about them. If you think that, you know, this pandemic might trigger a particular clause in the lease that will give you some relief, let's discuss it. If you have any questions in general about your property, let's discuss it. And people will tell you what their needs are. You don't have to be, this isn't the time to be pushy and prospect in a way that we might have done otherwise, but I think it's the time to show some concern and try to help. I've gotten some clients a 6-month extension where the landlord's not paying me, but I get them out of some trouble where they might be facing an extension and double rent. Just trying to put some patches and band-aids on things until we can get back to normal and things can be figured out. So I think if you do that, they're going to know who is in their corner, and they will come back to you in good times, and it'll maintain the relationships. Doing the same thing, like Kurt said, with the hot prospects. Offer your services. That's what I've been doing. That's what's been working. And I don't think people are objecting to receiving calls right now. As someone mentioned earlier, you're getting through to people you would otherwise never get through to. And they frankly appreciate the concern and the reach out at this time. So that's what I got.
All right, so reach out to the strategy. The tactic is to reach out to active and inactive clients, but be purposeful. You know, first and foremost, care. Ask, how are you? And then second, offer something of value and be a resource for answers.
Correct.
Thank you, Michael. Kurt, what is your best tactic or technique for prospecting?
Well, I already said it, but I'll reiterate. So
say it again and do it with passion, because we're going to vote on this and you could be a winner.
Okay, so you've seen the letter, that email that we sent out. We probably sent it out to no less than 500 existing clients and then good prospects. No, that's too many. We probably sent it out to about 300 existing clients and really good prospects. And then we followed up with a call or another email if we got a response that, you know, suggested us helping them and on their behalf putting a call into their landlord. not asking, we would never do a form letter like Cressa did, and we would never call a landlord and say, you know, we really, unless the tenant tells us that they really are having trouble, because we of course ask them that, then we just call and say, listen, I know you're probably getting a lot of calls, but is there anything that you could do to help out this particular tenant in any way? That's basically how we do it. And we've gotten, like I said, we've been getting a very good response when from everybody when we offer such help. All existing clients, whether they're very active or not, all of them have asked us to contact their landlord, except one. So that's it.
Okay, so to recap, your strategy was first to create a letter of value for your clients and prospective clients. If they're not thinking about these things, they should be. Then you follow up with a personal touch, a phone call, and then the assumptive, almost assumptive, ask your clients and prospects if they want you to reach out to their landlord on their behalf.
Correct.
And you've got great results. Howard, you're up. Best technique or tactic for prospecting?
Well, I'm going to reiterate what I said before. I think it's prospecting among your existing clients and probably asking them for referrals. As much as we're talking to people in our industry, I'm sure they're talking to people in their industry, and the ability to have, you know, certainly a warm call is, if you're going to prospect, I think is very, very helpful in these times. I would only disagree with one thing that Kurt said. Kurt, if I heard you correctly, you said you would go to the landlord on behalf of your tenant and ask what the landlord is willing to do. I think that everything that I've read and everything that I have remembered from the 08-09 crisis was that, you know, the landlords want to know what the tenant has done to take the pain, whether it's laying off people, applying for government loans, taking pay cuts, furloughing, et cetera, so that the landlord is not the first pocket that they look to. And I think it's got to be done on an individual basis with a built, if you will, for what the tenant needs and how they need it, and so on and so forth. I think the general questions are going to be met with a no from the landlord, you know, almost immediately. And then you're going to have to go back if you want to and kind of build your case anyway and see if you can get back in on a second wave. I think if the tenant is really having an issue, I think you got to build a case first and go to the landlord with a plan.
Thank you for that, Howard. Going back to your strategy, number one, contact existing clients. Number two, ask for referrals. Is there any magical way that you specifically ask for the referral or make the ask for the referral?
Well, I think I use my relationship with the client and all of the things that I've done for them over the years, and that they respect me for and that they value, and say, gee, you know what I can do. How can I help your friends, your competitors, your other people in your industry that are undergoing, you know, similar issues?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you. Dustin, you're up, sir. Best tactic, best technique for prospecting.
So we're focused on certain industries, and we've drafted specific emails. This preceded COVID. Specific emails to the industry we care about. So just use community real estate as an example. And there's a bunch of folks we haven't reached out to previously, and we're reaching out to them with a little preamble that says, hey, we're all staying at home at the moment. We'd like to take a moment to introduce ourselves, and we're the company that people go to with these questions. And it's about renewals and can I be more aggressive with my landlord in the future? I think we're trying to update that regularly so that we're relevant today. But it's a long-term strategy, not, hey, come and let us help you right now. If when we do have response from them, there's not been a lot of, we need help terminating or shedding some rent right away, but I think some of that will come along as we go. And I very much agree with reaching out to your past clients and current prospects.
So if I heard you right, it's a cold email to your targeted prospects, and it really is a top of funnel introduction.
Yep. And then we're also following up via a phone message. And if we don't reach them, we'll shoot them another email, see if we can spend some time introducing ourselves.
Okay. Mason.
I approach it more from the landlord side. I don't do as much tenant rep, but prospecting is prospecting. I don't think you just, it's appropriate to dial for dollars and make blind calls right now to people that you don't necessarily know. But, we've all the people that are on this call have, I'm sure, been very active in their respective markets for many years, and they're well known within their markets. So I made it a point of reaching out to a lot of property owners, landlords that I don't even necessarily have listings with currently, but who I've done deals with in the past, or I have prior relationships, but maybe I'm not actively doing business with right now, just to reach out and not even really to prospect, but to talk about the market, talk about what they're seeing. A lot of those people view us as being the people that are on the front lines dealing with this. And we're viewed in many respects as the experts. They're as curious to know what we're seeing as we are to know what they're doing with their holdings and their business. So, we've asked a lot of questions here. Where's the business going? What are the trends? What are we going to see with rates and free rent and all these things? I don't think anybody truly knows the answers to those things. That's all going to evolve over the matter of weeks and months. So people want to hear from you, and they just want to talk to you. And it's not necessarily even prospecting like, hey, when this is all over, can I have a listing on your building? It's, I just want to reach out, see what's happening with your business. I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. And I think that it lays the foundation for potential business, not tomorrow or a week from now, but maybe 6 months from now. And that's how I'm approaching it.
Tell me again, how are you making that initial contact?
Yeah, a lot of times I'll just pick up the phone and call people. I think personal contact right now is very important. Nobody wants to get a form letter, an email. If people communicate by email and that's their preference, yeah, I'll send emails to people. But I think, right now, just calling people up, and, a lot of these property owners I'm very friendly with too. I've known them for years, how are you doing? And this is sincere. It's not fake. It's, how are you? How's your family? How are your employees? How are you getting through this? People want to hear from other people within the industry. And I appreciate those calls and that personal touch.
So I'm going to give a stab at summarizing it. You tell me if I'm saying it correctly. So you're making personal contacts more for mind share, not as much as market share.
Yeah, I would say so.
So I'll share one of the things that I've been doing. This is not a COVID specific. Dave Bauman, who's in my office, is on here. He knows this already. We hired a sales consultant about a year ago. She gave us this idea. So it's called a strategic alliance get together. And it's 6 questions that I've been asking everybody that I call a strategic partner. Strategic alliance partner is either someone that is, it could be an existing client, an inactive client, someone who refers you business, or someone who has the ability to refer you business because they're calling on the same people that you're calling on. What I like about it, it's 6 questions. It's purposeful. It gets me focused on what the discussion is about. And then as I read the questions to you, I'll tell you how it generates activity for me. So the first question, very simple. If I was doing this with Frank, I'm going to say it to Frank because he's right here. Frank, don't answer, but rhetorically, share with me, what is it that you do? I assume because I'm sitting in front of Frank, an industrial broker, I assume I know what he does, but the way he explains it back to me is so insightful in his own words. Number 2, what separates you from your competition? Number 3, where do you find your customers? Number 4, what or who are your best clients? Number 5, what is a good referral for you? Number 6, what are bad referrals for you? So I've been doing this with my existing network. Again, the most profound thing is how my friend Lucero as a banker described what he does to me. When I ask him what's separate from his competition, it gets him to think, but it also, the way that he answers the question is the way that I refer him in the future. You know, where do you find your customers? Gives me a signal as to what ponds he's fishing in, what communities he's involved with. You know, who or what are your best customers? That's a brilliant one if they're willing to share it specifically. If not, it's industries, because then I know what specific referrals I can be asking for. When I ask what's a good referral for you, I usually have to probe because they say, you know, anyone who needs commercial real estate space. You can't answer the question with anyone who. Needs to be more specific, because what I want to do with this, my purpose is to connect you with people that would be good referrals for you. And the next question I'm going to ask you is a bad referral, because I want to know that too. And I'll tell you right now, a bad referral for me is a new business owner that wants to do a month-to-month lease. I just can't really help that person. So that is a bad referral. So when I go through this around question 3 or 4, something clicks in their brain and they sit up a little straighter. And by question 5 or 6, they ask me for a copy of this, which I always give to them. So mine is called Strategic Alliances, Purposeful Questions with Anybody in Your Network, really. And if anybody wants this, I'm happy to share it with you. I'm going to put my email here in the chat box. Dustin, I'm going to ask you to share, if you're willing to, your form email, your initial email that you send out as a cold email. All right, how do we do this now? All right, let's everyone lower their hand. Let's use this thing. Everyone lower your hand. We're going to go through. I'm going to recap who presented and their idea, and then we'll go one by one. You can raise your hand for them. We'll count. Take your hand down. We'll go to the next one. Does that sound good? Yeah, thumbs up. All right. And then we'll wrap up a couple of house announcements. And let me do first, and then if anybody needs to go, they can, and we'll go from there. So first of all, we will send out the contacts from this call to everybody so you can stay in touch and stay connected with your fellow CORFAC office brokers. We can copy the questions, if correct me if I'm wrong, in the chat. We'll capture that as well if anybody wants. There's a couple articles in there and whatnot that you can reference back. This call has been recorded, so we will send out a recording of the call. If you want to revisit it, share it with anybody in your office or in your clients as well. And I want to leave with this parting thought, and then we'll do the voting if anybody who can stick around. Not forget to ask the CORFAC question, especially during these times. And the CORFAC question, most of you know it. For those of you don't, it's what else besides the existing market can I help you right now with your real estate needs? Again, don't assume that they don't have real estate needs elsewhere. And if they do, and you can help them, that's the power of the CORFAC network. All right, so if you need to go because it's 10 Pacific, feel free to sign off. If you want to indulge me and stay for the voting, please do. And again, the winner, it can't be me, by the way. I will send something nice to the winner, and I'll let you know what it was once we decide what it is. All right. Michael, Kurt, Howard, Dustin, and Mason. So calling active and inactive clients with 2 questions. How are you? Offer something of value to be a resource for answers. So who wants to vote for Michael? Raise your hand. You can vote for yourself, by the way. All right. We're taking it out. Sorry, Michael, no raises. Although I liked it very much. Okay, Kurt. Kurt's approach was, oh, Kurt, you ran for yourself or Michael? I just saw it go up. Kurt?
For Michael.
Okay, for Michael. So you've got 2 votes.
Thank
Steve,
you,
is it for
Kurt.
Michael or for Kurt?
Kurt.
Okay, so 1 for Michael. Anybody else for Kurt? Yes, I see another one here. Well, I saw another one. Oh, here's, ooh, Kurt got some nice votes here. 1, 2, 3. What was that, 4? Good. Howard, contact existing clients, ask for referrals. So take your hands down, Steve, Michael, Kurt. And now let's vote for Howard. All right. Howard votes for Howard because it's working for him. Dustin, cold email to prospects, top of funnel introduction strategy. Actually like that one. I'm going to vote for Dustin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kurt, you're voting twice. All right, I think I got 6 here. All right, and Mason, personal contacts from mind share, not market share. I'm going to lower my hand. All right, a couple. Dustin, I think you're it, sir. Congratulations. All right, all good ideas. Everybody, thank you. We'll send out, like I said, the contacts, the recording, and let's stay in touch. Everyone be healthy and be safe. Yes, winner gets a Popeye's chicken sandwich.
Hey, Hayim, thank you very much. And for those who are interested, tomorrow we got a retail call at the same time. And that's being hosted by Joe Latina. And on Friday, we have an industrial call hosted by Frank Schultz at the same time, 11 a.m. And just to let you know, I'm working on getting a well-known economist to do a program for us, hopefully next week or the following week. So stay tuned.
Great.
Great
Thank you.
job.
Thanks, Hayim.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Howard.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.